most about Mr. Starr?
Bart, it's an interesting story, his time in the NFL. When I arrived in Green Bay, Bart was sometimes second string, sometimes third string. Didn't know who he was. He was extremely quiet. He was very polite. There was some questions about his character, his manhood, his strength. And I remember playing the Chicago Bears. Bart went back, threw a long pass. My defensive tackle turns around, is watching the ball. I'm watching the ball. Bart's watching the ball. Bill George, the Bear middle linebacker, isn't watching the ball. Bill's coming. He comes in and hits Bart in the mouth with a forearm, knocks him backward about 3 yards, splits his lip, his upper lip, up into his nose, and says, "I ought to take care of you, Starr, you bleep, bleep, bleep." And Bart looked up at him and said, "Bleep you, Bill George, we're coming after you." And I'm standing there watching him bleed, and I said, "Bart, you better go get sewed up. You're bleeding like a stuck hog." He said, "Shut up and get in the huddle." I said, "Yes, sir." So he took us down the field about 7 or 8 plays. We scored. He went to the sidelines. We all did, of course. Laid Bart on the bench. We weren't as delicate as the boys today. Put 11 stitches in his upper lip. Patted him on the backside, and he went back into the ball game and took us down for another score. So at that moment, we understood Bart Starr's backbone, his character, who he was, and what he was all about. And fundamentally, Bart was a really good person. He was so good that sometimes you thought it was phony. Bart could have a prayer breakfast with the ladies in the morning. He could have lunch with the businessman. He could have a beer that evening with the guys. And I thought it was phony, but it was Bart's life. It's the way Bart was. It's who he was. He's just a very special human being, and he was a good person, and he lived his life as a good person, and perhaps one of the best people I've ever known.
I want you to take us back now to the Ice Bowl. December 31st, 1967. You are blocking for Bart Starr. Before the play is called, what happened in the huddle, and then how he went over to Vince Lombardi, and then the actual play itself. Tell us about everything that you remember.
I remember there were about 4 minutes left, and we had not done much in the second half. In fact, we had a minus 9 yards in the last 31 plays. I remember we had about 4 minutes and a few seconds left in the game, and I'm on the field, and Bart comes into the huddle a little bit late. And I asked him about this years later. I said, "Bart, what made you think you could take that team down the field 65 yards or whatever it was, something like that, maybe 70, and score when we hadn't gained a yard in the last 31 plays?" He said, "Jerry, I got in the huddle, and I was going to say something. I looked in your eyes, I looked in Forrest's eyes, I looked in Gilly's eyes, I looked in Ski's eyes. I knew I didn't have to say anything, so all I said was, 'All right, let's go.'" So every guy on that team picked it up, elevated their performance, elevated their emotional involvement, gave everything they had. Boyd Dollar, sensational across the middle. Donnie Anderson, Chuck Mercine, Forrest, Ski, Gilly. Everybody on the field elevated their performance. So we get down to the 1 yard line, and I had suggested on Thursday in short yardage films that Jethro Pugh was a little higher than he should have been. He came up instead of staying down like Bob Lilly. So Bart went to the sidelines and had a timeout with 15, 16 seconds to go. Talked to the coach, and he'd asked me if I thought I could make the block. I said, "I think I can." And so he came back and called a 31 wedge. And a lot of guys thought, like Chuck Mercine, thought he was going to get the ball. And I knew Bart was going to get the ball. And whether we had a private conversation or what it was, I don't remember exactly or how it happened. But I knew that I had a job to do, and I knew where we were in time, and I knew where we were on the field and the whole history of things. So I made the block, and Bart tumbled in beside me, and it was a victory for us and on to Super Bowl II and our third consecutive title. So wonderful moment. Coach Lombardi watching the films after the play or in the locker room after the game, and somebody pointed out the play. Tommy Brookshire was in the room. So former Philadelphia Eagle was doing the color. And coach goes, "Way to go, Jerry! Way to go!" A big laugh and a big smile. And Bart, of course, did what he was supposed to do and scored and trotted off the field. He very humble person, a very good person. That word "good" keeps coming back to my mind, and I think he lived his life to be a good person, and I think he impacted a lot of the Packers, and certainly me. I watched him and watched him and watched him, and finally I threw in with him. I said, he's just a wonderful person, and he is every charitable event. He does everything he can possibly do for the fans, and I started following his example. I felt like I became a better person because of Bart.
With all of Bart Starr's incredible accomplishments, what would you like people to remember the most about him?
That he was a good, solid human being, that he cared for other people, that he was always polite with other people, that he always took the time to stop for a kid or stop for an autograph or stop for something that people needed from him. He was always there. He never refused anyone. He never walked on by. He was just a sensational human being.
You are listening to the voice of Hall of Famer Jerry Kramer, who played with Bart Starr. Mr. Kramer, thank you so much for joining us on this very sad day.
Thank you.
Hall of Famer quarterback Bart Starr has passed away at the age of 85.